In this episode, I will talk about some themes that I had been investigating in various forms while in Germany. Koji Taki, critic, hosts four designers. Their names listed on the front cover: Arata Isozaki, Kazuo Shinohara, Shiro Koramata, and me. It is a 1974 publication of the public dialogues with the four people. Actually, most of the dialogue with me was in the summer of 1973. In this book, I set up the idea of cosmology of image and gave it in the form of a lecture. I report my research on how humans see things and how figures rise, and as I said before, how the act of cognition gives interesting nuances to the way we see things. If possible, I would like everyone to take a look at the contents of Cosmology of Diagrams, but here I would like to quickly introduce a part of the book, about 1/3, using diagrams as the lead. The first one to appear is brachiation of the monkey. It is the swinging action of the monkey as it dangles from the branch of a tree. It is also hidden in the handwork and footwork of the human talent of ballet, which is similar to it, brachiation of monkeys. In addition, regarding the hand movement with respect to the brachiation of a monkey, for example, there was a man called Desmond Morris who was a keeper at a zoo in London, had a chimpanzee hold a paintbrush and draw a picture to beat the loneliness of the chimpanzee. This radiation on the left is one of the drawings drawn by the chimpanzee. From the group of lines moving back and forth from the center, it is thought that the traces of brachiation remain in the hand of monkeys. This is my guess, but consider such things and then consider the example of Desmond Morris' study of differences between two representations, in which the picture drawn by the human child is compared with the final picture drawn by this chimpanzee. The human child first draws a corresponding human being, an example of which is lined up in the middle. I believe that these peculiar pictures were born from the relationship of cognition between the human child and the mother. The consideration that the human body expression called solar person was created by extracting and combining the parts of the mother's body that move well. Going back, the movement of the human eye actually traces the outline of the object to be seen, moving as if it were drawing an outline. This is a trace of the movement of the eyeball looking at the object examined through an eye camera. You can see that the movement of the eyeball traces the outline of the statue of the Egyptian queen. The connection between the movement of the eye and cognition. All these new findings were published in an American scientific magazine called Scientific American, which introduced new experiments and scientific findings from around the world with unique and beautiful illustrations which fascinated us. This was one of the things that caught my eye in the Ulm library. A characteristic of human vision that connects lines of change in light and boundaries of brightness to make shapes stand out from the background. It seems that the so-called Mach band is the basis of cognitive mechanism that creates the edge effect and shapes the contour line. This is an image that suggests the connection between sound and shape. The shape at the bottom that looks like a star and the shape below it that looks like a snake. For example, the sound of a flash or the slithering sound Which image corresponds to the flesh and which to the slithering? I think it is obvious if you give it a glance. On the other hand, the image on the top of the left page, if you take the way of calling it as toy, or if you call it as a bogue, calling it a toy makes one associated with a mouse, and the people who hear the calling of bogue think of the lion. That is to say, sound is deeply connected to the shape. This connection between sound and form has influenced the graphic score of contemporary music. Or how has it been useful in music notation that records the changes in human voice, such as the notation of Japanese Buddhist hymns and Western Gregorian chant notation? The one in the bottom of the left page is a Tibetan Buddhist hymn, and the one on the top left is Japanese Buddhist hymn called Bombay, song in praise of Buddha's virtues. The one in the center is the Gregorian chant, the Mokuro song. Then there is the noise pattern, high in purity. Actually, it is common to think that there is no meaning in a noise pattern. Information can be hidden in noise patterns also, or something that Bela Zulej, an American scientist, researched on. This is an introduction to that research. On the other hand, this dispersing pattern. What looks to be just a noise image transforms in a moment to an image that has meaning. The face of a man becomes visible. The next moment, the noise pattern disappears and you cannot see anything but the man's face. It is the momentary birth of graphic cognition. Furthermore, figure analysis based on the amount of information and syntax of semiotic figures are born. Meanwhile, using noise, how much can we break down the character symbols that we use every day? Are the trials seeking to what extent characters and symbols are legible if we keep adding noise to it? This sort of image background is related to the research on camouflage. In this way, the unexpected grammatical nature of random noise patterns has been studied using various methods. What we just saw here was just one part of cosmology of imahe. All these kinds of examples are included to make a 2-hour lecture. Something like this was part of my search for noise iconography in the 64, 67 and the early 70s. Building on the examples from the research on information aesthetics and information science, pursue seeing and creation process of shapes. Furthermore, the result of trying to organize it towards creation process was the study of cosmology of image. Based on this research, I tried to summarize my attempts to explore the boundary between noise and figures and how figures emerge from noise.